Eminence. Go throw them knees up in the air.
9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
It's the SFL Nights it's the SFL Nights with AJ Striker, with AJ Striker. In a room full of dimes, you would be $100 if the affair was a crime. Girl, they lock your little fine ass up in the tower. The way you move like you do, ooh, it's like you do it for a living. Do a little spin, do it again. See, look like you're playing for the win. Oh baby, I'm tryna ride, I'm tryna ride.
Time to get unplugged. Just plug that in. This makes no sense. Welcome to Commish Unplugged, featuring SFL Commissioner Cameron Irvine and no one else. This might be terrible. It might be the greatest podcast ever. Here he is, Cameron Irvine. Wow, phenomenal introduction. That is fantastic. Special shout out to Mood Mode for the soundtrack. It's going to be in my head all day. I love that. Shout outs, Taco Sicario, Joseph Clausen, High Gear, Gerald Winkler, Monica Naka, Chicago Ghost, Matthew Slynn, Thomas Smith, Rochelle Lagarde, Portland Fleet, Benji Matson, many others. It's going to be a great show. First one ever. Actually, I can't guarantee it. It might not be a great show. It might be really bad. How we sound? No, she's not in the house, Deputy Commissioner. I would not have done that. It would have been really embarrassing. Look at that, Mr. Ya HD Ho. That's not how you say that. Brian Loveless, Look Alive 24 is here too. I'm Effin' Problem is here. I did do my own intro. It's part of the funniness of episode 1. Who knows how long it will go on. Ronnie Nickens is here. Happy birthday, by the way, to Mark Chisholm, who's here in the chat with us. Music a little loud. All right, that's good to know. We'll turn it down next time. But the sound is good. Music isn't loud enough, says Matthew Slynn. I saw a comment from one person that will remain nameless, saying that Dave's music is better than mine. Well, I still think Dave is having some copyright issues, so, yeah, all right. We'll turn it down next time. That sounds good. Kramer's in here, probably to talk about his MVP candidacy. My twin screw is in here, and yeah, we got everybody in here. So, with that said, let's get into our first segment. What's for dessert? Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of What's for Dessert with me, AJ Striker. Don't take Cam out for drinks, take him out for dessert. Take it away, Cam. Thanks, Ashley. You can check out SFL Nights Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Central on jamokc86.com and on the Arizona Scorpions YouTube channel. Just make sure to subscribe over there. So, what's for dessert this week? It's Ben & Jerry's, Netflix and chilled. This ice cream is awesome. For those that don't know, I'm a huge ice cream junkie. I'm kind of addicted to it. So not going to apologize. But, yeah, Netflix and Chilled is awesome. It's in my freezer right now. It's peanut butter ice cream with some sweet and salty pretzel stuff, some brownies. And that's what happened. To those in the chat, just thinking about Ashley Jackson's intro. She's awesome. She's awesome. Matthew Slynn, this is already the weirdest SFL thing I've ever watched. That's great. That's great. But yeah, ice cream's great. And if you're eating vanilla, you're missing out on life being great. Netflix and Chilled. It's the best, and that's what's for dessert this week.
What is up, SFL Nation, and welcome back to SFL Night with AJ Striker. Thank you so much for joining me today or tonight, or whenever you decided to hit that play button or turn on that radio dial. Really appreciate it, y'all. And I'm decided to do a little something special this evening. I have a very, very, very special guest with me. And I figure I would just dedicate this whole show to this very special guest. He is Mr. Cameron Irvine, SFL Commissioner. How are you doing?
That's your way of saying that I talk too much and no one else can join the show when I'm on the show. That's
it. I'm so glad I didn't have to, spoon feed that.
I'm doing great. It sounds like it's beautiful where you're at. It is beautiful where I'm at as well. So can't complain.
It is such a gorgeous day today in Atlanta, just in case y'all was wondering. Can't ask for days like this. I mean, we've been through a whole cold spell and things like that, but yeah, you can just sit out and it's nice and quiet. Relatively, it's a good thing. But so, what's going on with you? How are you doing today? Before we get started with all the good stuff.
Doing well, Ashley. We just completed our 18th regular season, so that's really exciting, and ready for the playoffs. Have lots of new things in the works, things cooking, new teams coming in. Of course, that's always exciting to kind of shake the deck up, reshuffle some things, and we're gonna see what happens. I think we're gonna have 10 applicants for the 4 spots, so we will see how voting goes next week.
Oh, that's gonna be interesting. I mean, we had the privilege of hearing from at least 4 of them already. If the others, of the 6 of you, if you want to come on out, and just let everybody know who you are, things like that, or not. I know some people are kind of shy about that, so either way, good luck to all of you. Cam, I'm not going to put you on the spot because I was going to ask you which one do you think may have the chance, but I'm not going to even set you up for that. But interesting games this week. Any of them took you by surprise?
The ones coming up?
The ones that we just had.
The ones that we just had in week 13.
Week
yes.
13. Uh-huh.
Took me by surprise. It felt like, Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like Tulsa and Charleston were kind of slipping. And Denver and Houston were kind of rising. And when you looked at the standings, you thought, well, it seems like Denver and Houston are going to kind of move on up and stake claim to some of those last spots, but that's not what happened in week 13. Tulsa surprised everyone. They were down big to Louisiana in the first half. They came back and won. And then Charleston went on the road to Atlanta when Atlanta's season was, it was a must-win game for the Swarm to stay in it. Charleston took care of them. And then Denver couldn't pull it out against Sioux Falls, and then Houston lost another heartbreaker, this time to Vancouver after they were up by 21. So I think just the dynamics at the bottom of the standings, Ashley, I think were a little surprising because everybody that was trending up and trending down in week 13, it kind of flipped on its head. And on top of that, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Louisiana, all those teams at the top of the standings, they all lost. DC as well. So you had these 3, 7, and 3 teams that were ahead of everybody else. They all lost. And so now you've got this huge cluster at 7 and 4 that essentially means that buys all the way down to, wild card home games are all up for grabs in the final week of the season.
Oh man, that's crazy. So did you expect that when you were coming into this season, that all of these coaches and all of these games were going to be so competitive that even in the end or towards the end, it was just going to be like,
well, I always expect a cluster of teams at 6-6, right? We get that every year. But I think what was unexpected is all of these teams that are very above average that, you know, are have this 7-4 record and who have all shown at some time during the season flashes of absolute brilliance, championship contenders. But they just, you know, when you look at all of the losses that they've had, they're all very close. And so I think what we've learned this season is just because you're an under 500 team does not mean that you don't know what you're doing. Does not mean that you can't compete or that you can't coach or you don't, you know, have a good thing going at your squad. And I think a lot of times people would look at a 4-7 team or a 3-8 team at this point in the year in previous seasons and go, they had a bad year. But when you look at the 4-7 teams, the 3-8 teams this year, and you look at what they've been through and the close losses that they've suffered, you say, you know, I don't really know that they are that bad. They just, you know, caught some bad breaks, and here we are. Yeah.
I mean, even like Arizona, for example, you know, I've always asked this question, and I did tell Eddie that I was going to mention this on the show, and it's not a knock to my organization at any point. Even when I ask this question, it's not a knock to anybody. But when you say someone that's been overrated, I felt like I think we overrated ourselves when we coming into this. I told Eddie, don't ever say we're going 12-0. With all of the good teams that we have out here, with all the good coaches out here, everybody's learning, everybody's growing, you know? Hey, buddy.
What's up, Dodger? Crashing the show.
No problem. You know me. I have dogs, birds, babies, everything. It's all good. But, you know, I would say that we overrated ourselves this year, especially if you're even talking about 10-2. That was kind of a stretch. If I remember correctly, Hunter Norwood said Arizona was going to be trending at 8-4 if you were looking at the past. So I definitely understand when you say that teams that were doing good in past seasons and they kind of have those down years, seasons rather. You could try to change things up. You know, sometimes you lose key pieces in your organization that when you replace them, it wasn't at the same tier, so you have to try to work with that. Different things happen. But it is how you handle yourself during the rest of the season. And that Baltimore win for Arizona was a big win. To be honest, if you look at my content creator sheet, that was one of the games I knew we were going to lose. And I'm not saying I'm knocking anybody when I say that, but you know, they're just so strong and so powerful. You know, you never know. But then again, we won. And it's important for people to understand that coaching is not easy.
Well, you should take your own advice, Ashley. You shouldn't expect to lose any game or win any game for that matter, because anybody can beat anybody. And I think about a team like San Diego, who, you know, has lost all these games in a row after that really hot start. They got nothing to play for. They're already eliminated, and they're taking on a Lone Star team that's fighting for a division championship. And San Diego's pushing them to the limit and being, you know, kind of a gnat to the glory. Just, you know, go away. You know, we've got things to do, and San Diego doesn't let it die. And I think sometimes when you see teams with hot starts like San Diego, what that says to me is they've got a good base. They know how to put together a great playbook, a great game plan. They know how to build a roster, right? Because if you can win early, that means that you've got the talent on the field to compete. Where the losing streak in the latter half of the season comes in is people have figured you out, right? You're not able to show more wrinkles in your offense or your defense that is helping you to win games down the stretch. Teams are scouting you. They've figured you out, and now you're really struggling to pivot. That's what a losing streak late in the season says to me. On the flip side, you got a Portland team who's won 2 games in a row after starting 0-9. Well, how is that? It's obvious that Portland knows how to scout opponents and knows how to make adjustments. because you can't win games late in the season if you don't know how to do that. But at the beginning of the season, maybe they didn't quite have a scheme down, right? They didn't quite know what their identity is. They didn't quite know how to execute, and that's where you lose games at the beginning of a season. So it's just interesting to see how teams, fluctuate up and down as the season goes along, and what that all means.
Definitely. And we have some very key plays, a lot of key plays this week, just looking back at the this little list I made of just some really key plays. Lone Star Glory's bogey bar, beautiful interception. Ike McBride has been doing a phenomenal, and she had a fantastic run that game. Robert Redford's touchdown. Oh my gosh. I think he had to battle like about 3 or 4 different players just to even get to the end zone. And it was a lot of players that had that ability this week, particularly, just to be able to muscle their way through the defense. Even like Phoenix Jones, he had 2 different plays where he just knocking people over, and it was just incredible to watch. So
a lot of determination and a lot of players in the right positions to make plays, but when somebody's on, they're on. When these running backs get going downhill, it's tough to stop, and they're very important pieces to these teams.
Indeed. So let's talk a little bit about expansion. So how excited are you about increasing the league by 4 teams? And we had over 95 rookies join us. How do you feel about all of that good stuff?
Well, we continue to grow slowly and meticulously as we go through. We try not to get too high or too low. We don't grow by 800 players all of a sudden out of nowhere, right? That's never been our strategy. We just want to be able to grow with what we can handle, and it felt like the right time after, Ashley, quite frankly, the league has found stability. 3 seasons in a row, we've had 24 teams, and we've had the same divisions, and we've established a division rotation schedule, and I think that all of that has put us in a really nice position to build for the future, right? And we didn't want to go away from that. If you go to 26 or 25 or 30 or whatever the case may be, we would have to get away from the structure that has given us so much greatness, right? So, I think that was kind of the focus. Let's add another division. Just try not to make as many as little changes as possible, and let's keep on doing what we're doing. There's a lot of people out there that have been waiting for an opportunity to kind of run their own show. And what that does is it not only shuffles the deck among our current 24 teams, but it also injects new storylines. It gives opportunity for advancement in the league to a lot of different people, players included. Right now, players have a chance, quarterbacks have a chance to go seek a new opportunity. Same thing with running backs, rookies, anybody trying to move up a depth chart, right? I think that expansion teams will have a lot to offer to be able to try to entice some of these defensive backs, some of these linebackers to say, hey, come and start for us, right? It's going to be interesting to see if they can execute that. So I think Ashley, I'm a big believer of, every once in a while you just kind of have to inject a little bit of new into something to keep it fresh and keep things moving. So that's what this is all about. It felt like the right time, the league is ready for it. We had a great season, introducing buys. Ashley was a big part of things that helped give coaches some breaks, helped give our broadcast team, our stats team some breaks as we move forward into a 28 game structure. Now everything doesn't feel so daunting, having to cram it all into a 12-week season. Right. We'll add a third night of games, so it won't just be Saturdays and Sundays anymore. So so all of that stuff, we spread things out, we keep on entertaining, doing all those things. I think it's all really important and the right time for it.
Hey, absolutely. I definitely commend you on that. I know that's one of your dreams, was to continue to grow the league and to continue to make a positive impact on people's lives. And you've been doing that for a while now. But tell me, what those new teams that you're adding, do you find that like around this time of the year that it's going to be even more of a challenging task for you to go through all of the different scenarios that you have to do?
Oh, you mean like when we have 28 teams?
Right.
How is this time of year going to be like?
Right.
It's interesting, Ashley. Yeah, no, it's a good point. Right now, our plan is to stick with 12 teams in the playoffs. Our goal is that a team with a winning record never misses the playoffs. If you're in 6-6, I view that as you're in sports purgatory, right? You may be invited, you may not be invited, but you didn't win more games than you lost, right? And so right now, with having half of our teams make it, some 6-6 teams end up making it, some 6-6 teams don't end up making it, right? This year, it's still possible that no 6-6 teams make it, just given the fact that Charleston, Tulsa, and London can all win this week and get to 7-5 and basically shut everybody else out. But more than likely, all three of those teams will not win, and a 6-6 team will get it, or 2 or 3. So, the goal when we get to 28 teams is that 12 make the playoffs. If a 6-6 team makes it in, great. If they don't, that's all right, as long as a 7-5 doesn't get left behind. In the event that a 7-5 does get left behind, you could see the playoffs expand to 14. But we'll see what happens in the first season, to kind of get an idea. It's going to make tiebreakers. There's more teams in one bracket, so it's going to get intense and cutthroat from that. Every win matters just a little bit more because you don't have any wiggle room anymore at that 6-6 spot. When the league gets to 32 teams, you'll probably see a split into 2 conferences to help with that tiebreaker burden, right? So now you only have 16 teams on one side of the bracket fighting for 6 or 7 playoff spots, and the tiebreakers will be a little bit simpler there. 28, I think, is the last step of scenario insanity, which isn't a bad thing. Everybody loves going through all the different possibilities and seeing the chaos and everything. But once we get to 32, it just makes sense to split it up just for tiebreakers' sake. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
So is that difficult for you, like around this time, like even with the way the playoffs are currently structured? Is it difficult for you to come up with all of these scenarios?
Well, now that we've got divisional rotation, things are going to be a lot easier. You're going to see the scenario show. People see the scenario show Friday night, before the season ends, and me and my team of scenario nerds will be there just like we are every year to kind of go through it. This year, though, it's a little bit different because of the divisional rotation schedule. You're either going to have common games with someone or you're not. Because, for example, Baltimore and Vancouver don't share any common opponents. Can you believe that? Baltimore, they played the North, the South, and the West. And Vancouver played the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the South. So actually, they by the end of the season, they will have the South, Mexico City, Lone Star, Houston, and Fort Worth as common opponents. The problem is, Ashley, is that both Baltimore and Vancouver beat them all. So because Baltimore lost to Arizona and DC, and Vancouver lost to Charleston. So all of their common opponents are even. But I correct my statement from earlier that they don't share any common opponents, but that is possible. The point I'm trying to make, Ashley, is that you either have common opponents or you don't. And by having common opponents, we believe that that is going to help make scenarios a lot easier, because we're going to be able to go through and say, okay, they played the Atlantic and they played the Atlantic. What was their records? And then we can move on. So it's difficult, but if you know what we're doing, and we've been doing this long enough, to kind of get through it all, then it makes sense. I think, Ashley, the thing that people get hung up on a lot, and I'll give the scenario, this 5 and 6 scenario with St. Louis out as an example, is people get so fixated on what they've done well on their resume, and they don't necessarily think about, well, what about another team? So I'll give you an example, Ashley. St. Louis beat Vegas.
Right.
So you would say, well, they're both 5 and 6. So St. Louis would be ahead of Vegas, right? Okay. Well, St. Louis lost to Denver. So that means that Denver would be slotted above St. Louis.
Right.
And Vegas, perhaps. Well, what if Vegas beats Denver? Well, now everybody's beating each other. How are you supposed to determine who's better if everyone's beating each other? Well, Houston's in the mix. What if St. Louis hasn't played Houston? Well, how do we know? How can we say that St. Louis is better than Houston, right? So anytime you're in a tiebreaker with multiple teams, you can't just look at one situation and say, we beat them, we should be above them. Because it's about trying to figure out who is the best, what is the order of these teams that are tied. I think a lot of times the confusion that the community has is they see A beat B, therefore A is better than B. But that only applies if those are the only two teams with the same record, right? Otherwise, you have to include the rest of the teams who have completely different resumes in trying to figure out exactly who should be slotted above somebody else. And so I think that's where the biggest confusion lies, is you're looking at one specific matchup and saying it's clear cut, we're better than them. And it's not that clear cut, especially when you're down lower in the standings and you're tied with a bunch of other teams.
And I'm hoping by you explaining things like that it will kind of bring clarity to anyone that had those questions. Because I have seen that a lot. Hey, we beat them. Why are we still not in it? Or why are we less tier? Yeah, well, they probably beat someone that was slated above you, or it's different things. So, and we did the scenario show live the first time last year, and it was a big hit. Yes. Lots of viewership, despite having all the games earlier that day, which is, we have 8 this go around. It's a very long day for a guy like me, but it's a very exciting day because finally we get some clarity on how this postseason is going to look, and the drama starts to unfold with teams knowing, right? Oh, I want to cheer for this team because of X, Y, and Z, and they can understand their path into the playoffs. So exactly. Exactly. ESTV. How did that partnership come about, and what does that mean for the community? Well, Christian Alacio is part of the Canton bid. He was talking to me about World Pro Racing and about some of the things he's doing with them. They broadcast on ESTV, and he said, "Hey, have you ever checked out ESTV before?" And I said I had not, and he said, "Eric's a great guy over there, the CEO of ESTV. Reach out and see what they got going on." So this is a pretty rare thing to have happen. And considering how busy I've learned that he is, it's even more surprising. And sometimes it's just fate, Ashley. Mm-hmm. So I went to ESTV's website. I saw their contact phone number. I picked up the phone and I gave what's called a cold call, right? Where they don't know who you are. You're just giving it a shot, right? That's right. So I called the number on the ESTV site,
And guy answers the phone, and I said, I'm looking to speak with someone in the talent acquisition department. That's usually either talent acquisition or content acquisition is usually where I'm trying to get to when doing these distribution deals. And he said, I'm the guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. And so I kind of like go into my old thing and everything. And it wasn't until the very end of the conversation that I realized I was talking to Eric, the CEO of the whole company. And it just so happened that he must have just been free at the time that I called and wasn't in some other meeting or handling some other business. And so I was able to speak with the head boss man himself. We got in on a meeting, had a call, talked about the SFL, ESTV, went through kind of what we could do for one another and what the SFL was all about and what their mission was. So, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and then it all just kind of came together and we made things happen. So, I enjoy when it comes together like that. Most of them do not. Most of them take a very long time. The convention took 5 months. The NXT negotiations are still ongoing. We're all just trying to do what's best for everyone, but we've agreed in principle to continue for the next couple of years. So it just, these things don't often come together that quickly. And it came together very quickly, and it's always nice to get an easy win every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
So what it means for the community, Ashley, is it's essentially more exposure and another way to watch the SFL. What I like about ESTV's distribution model is that if you have a smart device, it's on it. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to turn on your smart TV, kick back and watch some SFL, right? It allows you to download the ESTV app and watch the SFL on your phone, similar as you would to YouTube or Twitch or anything like that. But it just, there's something about picking up the TV remote and going and finding the SFL that makes it that much cooler. And the SFL is going to be on a network with 100+ other partners. And all of those fan bases are going to be scrolling through ESTV, wondering what is on, and will come across us. ESTV's got some big NFL names as part of its business development team, and they're also going to be checking out the SFL, potentially getting involved in the SFL, right? And so it means that it's just another step in elevating your stardom as a player in the SFL. And I don't think players realize that when we're on Next Level Sports or when we might be on ESTV, that if you see 55 people watching the game on Twitch, that doesn't mean that it's just 55 people are watching this game. There are hundreds, if not thousands of people at any given time watching you play, and you just don't see them because they don't have a chat, right? Their viewership is not being counted in front of you. And the SFL is going to receive analytics every month from ESTV so that we can see some of those ratings, so that we can educate our players that it's not, you're being watched by far more people than maybe what you realize, and you're far more famous than what you realize being in the SFL.
Indeed, it's unexpected, right? You just came in just to see yourself on the field, perhaps partake in something that you have never played, or you used to play and you can't anymore, or you still play, and now you're on TV. Look, Mom.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, our dream is for you, Ashley, to be walking down the street in an Arizona Scorpions uniform and someone say, "Oh my gosh, you're Ashley Jackson." That's when we reach that level, then we will have made it, right? Okay. So the only way to do that is to get the SFL in front of as many eyeballs as possible.
Understood. Now, the acquisition of Rare Drop. Can you let us know a little bit about Rare Drop and how that would help the league as well?
Sure. Rare Drop is they're a little bit more of a long-term partner, long-term play. The SFL is always trying to increase your immersion into the product, increase your passion into the product. And the convention is always great every year, but there's more we can do here. In 2019, before the pandemic, we had the live rookie draft from FTF Studios in Boston, and that was a lot of fun. You know, people came in, Chris Curtis, Mike Daggs, Ray Bentley, Mark Chisholm came up to, and others, Andy, Eddie, Rastelli came up to see what it was like, right? I mean, doing a live draft from a real television studio where you've got, you know, staff there to help you out and assist and really make a full production out of it. I read from a teleprompter for the first time, you know, so I mean, it's really nice having some of this stuff at your disposal. You've got directors in your ear, you know, helping you through stuff, and it really it makes you feel like we're not alone in this world, right? That there are other people here that want us to be successful, and we want to do more things like that. Ashley, we want to be able to hold live events like championships and rookie drafts. We want to be able to have a trophy that you know, has all of the previous winners on it, that people can hold up and have that sort of one shining moment, right? And it's really hard to do that in a virtual world. And so being able to continue to bring our virtual world out and hold events in different parts of the country is important. ESTV has a television studio in Los Angeles. Rare Drop has a relationship with multiple facilities in Orlando. That's why you saw the convention destination as possibly being Orlando this year, because we didn't know. It was essentially a mini bidding war of, you know, are we gonna do we want to do the Vegas thing, which NXT was involved in, or could Rare Drop come in and make something happen in Orlando? So there's lots of different opportunities on both coasts to host events and do different types of things. GCX is a big convention expo that they have that Rare Drop puts on in Orlando. And in 2019, before the pandemic, they had 10,000 attendees. So the SFL will be in front of 10,000 attendees to just introduce our product to, when normally we're not in front of 10,000 people in any sort of capacity. And so what that's going to do is introduce, you know, our product to more people, get more eyes on it. And ultimately we could have live game weeks from that convention. I think in 2023, GCX is set for the first weekend of August, right, Ashley? So I think that's like week 4 of our summer 2023 season. I could just do week 4 right there from the convention, right in the booth, right? We've got all these games going on. We've got broadcasters, we've got everybody there, and we're essentially doing what I do from home, but in front of an audience that would be really captivated by the fact that these games were going on and there was some live commentary going on. So there's it's big for the future to really partner with a company that understands that the merging of virtual and reality is sort of that next step. Ashley, you're a gamer too. Twitch starts and everybody jumps on and starts playing games, right? Well, the next evolution of that was that people started watching people play games, right? Mm-hmm. And so that kind of took on life of its own. Then the next evolution was that the best gamers ended up competing in these big tournaments because people would show up and watch the best gamers participate in these big tournaments. So you've seen this evolution of esports in the United States. Well, the SFL has always believed that the next evolution is the people that are watching the talent on the stage are the actual talent on the stage, right? And so we're just trying to take it to the next step. Rare Drop believes in exactly what we're talking about and exactly what we're doing, involving and engaging the audience and making them not just audience members anymore. So we both share in that same vision, and we'll help each other over the years to make that happen.
Phenomenal. That is absolutely amazing. Kind of put me in the mind of when I was listening to Adam Chance and Christian Alacio when they were talking about their expansion bid and how they could possibly get us to have the Hall of Fame at the actual Hall of Fame facility in Canton. That fits exactly what you were trying to say.
Right.
Can you imagine? Like for me, for instance, for example, if I'm ever in the Hall of Fame, or if any one of our beautiful women of the SFL is ever in the Hall of Fame, you'd be one of the first females ever in that facility with a plaque. And it's crazy to even think about how esports or something, a hobby, can take you so much further,
I've not been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I was talking with the owner of Carolina, James Klein, the other day, and he said you get goosebumps if you're a football fan.
That's
you
what I
get
hear.
Goosebumps walking through there. And if we're able to put our people, which we're not saying we are, we're not saying that that's a thing that's going to happen, but if we could ever get to that point one day. And it sounds silly, right? Like, no, there's no way they would ever do that. Remember, this is not the NFL Hall of Fame. This is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They're an independent entity. It is not an NFL exclusive building. You have all sorts of people that have been involved in pro football that are a part of that facility. And why couldn't we be a part of that facility? We are professional esports football, and our players have history. Our players have Hall of Fame resumes in our world. They are our Hall of Famers. And this is professional sports, professional esports. There's a blending, there's a mix. And if you get the right people involved, if you're able to sell the vision correctly, we can get things done like this. So these are the types of things that the SFL strives for. I don't know what other leagues strive for or what kind of experience they're trying to give their customers, but I'm trying to, for lack of a better phrase, Ashley, I'm trying to enhance your life. I'm trying to give you something that you otherwise would not get in life. And that goes with, with everybody. So it's not just a business for me. It's not just a hobby for me. It's not just how I put food on my table. It's how can we really give someone Vegas, for example. Ashley, a ton of people never been to Vegas. They get to go to Vegas for the first time and just being there for a purpose, right? Walking in and seeing the larger than life Vegas things, and then being involved in an event in Vegas where you are on a larger than life screen. That's something that you would not otherwise ordinarily get in life. So that is what the SFL is all about.
So how did that come about, as far as you being able to have the convention at the Luxor, being able to be at the HyperX arena? How did all of that come about? Because that must have taken some work for you. And with that question, if you can also let us know, when you're looking for a destination, what are you looking for? Because some people may think that, can you have it, I don't know, let's just say Wyoming. Okay. Tell me why we can or we can't.
Right. Well, we'll start there. So we have 4 check boxes for our event. Number 1, it's got to be within 10 miles of an airport. Why is that important? It's important because if we're not, and you don't have a vehicle, that's going to add to your costs. It's going to add transportation costs. Houston did not check that box, right? It was more than 10 miles from an airport, and it caused some people some transportation hell trying to get through traffic, racking up costs and all that other stuff. So these check boxes, if we can find an event that checks, or an event space that checks all 4 of these boxes, then we've done our job. Easier said than done. So that's the first thing. So when you say Wyoming, right? Well, what airport are we flying into, and what's within 10 miles of that airport? And, is it easy to fly into? Is it expensive to fly into? Things like that. how many nonstop flights are there to that particular airport. So once you've got that checkbox, the second checkbox is what is the hotel rate? How can we make this affordable for the mass population? We understand that taking vacations or traveling or staying anywhere other than the home that you pay rent on or mortgage on can be expensive. And we don't want money to be a deterrent to you attending. Obviously, nothing is free. There's no convention on this entire planet that is free, that will fly you out, right? And just basically spend all the money they can to get you there. That's not a thing anywhere. So anytime you are going to travel, you are going to incur some costs. My job is to keep those costs down as much as I possibly can. The third checkbox is it a venue that is worth flying for, right? So in Houston, for example, we had the amphitheater. We had that incredible pool. We had an atmosphere that is just not something that you see everywhere or anywhere, right? You just can't go to some random city and enjoy that experience. And to this point, Ashley, I still have not found an event space that was like the one that we had in League City. And it was just a really cool place.
It was perfect. Yeah.
So, and then we had all those events right off the pool, the Hall of Fame stuff, and right off the bar. And it made for, a really great setting. So Houston definitely checked that box. The event space was unique. And that was really outstanding. And then, the fourth thing is the city itself. How attractive is the city itself? Is it central? Does it have an SFL team? First of all, if we don't have a team in their city, we lose an opportunity to potentially garner media attention, right? They're going to want to know, well, do we have a team? And if they don't, well, it's a hard sell. So do we have an SFL team there? Is it a destination city where people would want to go there for other things, right? Not just the SFL convention, because we have to consider that even though it is more expensive to fly with your family, the reality is that your family is your world. And there's a lot of times that people will not go on a trip unless they can bring their kids or unless they can bring their wives, and they feel like they can be engaged with their family and their SFL family. And if you're flying into a city that is not going to be able to offer any kind of entertainment to other people that may be coming, then you lose that kill two birds with one stone family vacation opportunity and possibility, right? And so we want to make sure that when we're picking destinations, Houston, for example, had a great pool, had lots of places around there to go shop, and there was a lot of entertainment. And so if you didn't want to watch games all day, you didn't have to. And you were able to go. So where does Las Vegas fit into it all? It checks every box, Ashley. The Luxors are right across from the airport. It is a larger than life entertainment space. The HyperX Arena, for 1 hour, your kids can play for $15 on the systems. They can play through a list of hundreds of games that are on the computers, and they can play video games if they don't want to watch the SFL or are not in the SFL, don't care about the SFL. It's something for them to do. It is a family friendly event space, and obviously the arena itself is larger than life. And is a unique place. There's nothing like that anywhere in the world. It is an awesome place with a bar on the second deck. You can watch SFL games from the balcony, and look down on everybody. You can watch games from your stadium seating. You're going to be introduced in starting lineups, and on the big screen, and going down the hype tunnel and walking out on stage and getting applause. And these are things that you can't experience anywhere else. So for the first time, Vegas really checks all the boxes. And HyperX Arena and the Luxor check all the boxes. And not to mention, Ashley, all the Vegas entertainment that is going to happen after dark, right? After SFL events are over, there are hundreds of shows along the Vegas Strip for people to attend, comedy shows, magic shows, entertainment shows. Just in the Luxor alone, Ashley, is America's Got Talent Live, the Blue Man Group, Carrot Top, and that's just in the hotel that we're in, not everybody else. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity.
Yeah, it is. I'm excited just hearing about it, and I figured it took a lot of it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of time, it takes probably a substantial amount of money to be able to pull off things like this. So I'm appreciative of it, and I can't think of any other communities where they set things up like this, where you can go meet the people that you talk to, the people that you converse with in your locker rooms or in the general chat, or that you play with on the field, all of that, And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to meet people and socialize. And yeah.
Some people might say, why does the league take some money and put it into these events? Why do we do it? And we don't have to do it.
No.
That's an expense that costs money every year. The league doesn't make money on conventions. It doesn't ever get anywhere close to making money on conventions because of the costs that you talked about, Ashley. But the reality is that we are reinvesting in what we see as part of our company, which is all of our players. This is for the players to come together and feel, just take that next step in being immersed in, this is real, right? These players are real. These people are real. This all may be a virtual world and a virtual community through Discord, but we are real people too. And we can celebrate our lives together and how they're intertwined through these conventions. And I believe it will only continue to strengthen our community, to give people these type of experiences. So we invest essentially back into our company and back into our players, and we do give back. And the subscriptions that players pay, you may not be able to go to a convention every year, but if you are able to go to one, you are helping to make these type of once in a lifetime events possible. You're helping to do that every month that you are here and involved in being a player in the SFL. You're helping to make these type of things happen, because they could not happen without you, and they could not happen without our great partners like NXT, who also invest in our community and say, this is a good thing we got going, and we believe in what the SFL is building, and we're going to get involved and we're going to support this.
Awesome. So these questions I'm going to ask you now are kind of geared towards the newer members of our community. Well, for them to kind of have a better understanding of you and why you do things you do sometimes. So why did you choose All Pro 2K8 anyway to start this whole venture on? Why not Madden? Why not any other game?
Well, we didn't choose it right away.
Okay.
We were on NCAA for a while, before the SFL was the SFL. It was a different acronym. It was a different league. And the reason why we didn't choose All Pro Football is we could only have 8 teams on it. Now, that was back in the day when we didn't realize that there were ways to have more than 8 teams in a league. And we didn't have any of those connections or know anything really about All Pro. I played All Pro as a kid. Me and my best friend would stay up all night creating teams and actually playing the game. And so I have a lot of nostalgia with All Pro as a kid. When it came out, I was 16 years old. That was the height of me not giving a crap about homework and just playing video games. And so, I mean, it was a big part of my life. But we actually started on NCAA, and the NCAA engine was very flawed, and EA games in general have a hard time of being playable out of the box. You really have to tweak and tinker with sliders to get really good sound gameplay, and that's complicated and a struggle for any league trying to put a legitimate football product on the field. So I shifted from, I actually put the league on hold for a little while because I needed to graduate college. This is, again, pre-SFL. When I started the league back up, we were much smaller than we used to be because I took some time off. All Pro at the time was actually just a test league. We were wanting to get the other league going again, but we wanted to explore how All Pro played as a simulation product. And so we started with 7 teams because we that was playable in All Pro, right? Like we could have a league there and it would be fine. And it was a very, very, very small thing. It wasn't until season 4 came around, or season 3 came around, when Casual Adult Gamers, Tim Johnston, Thomas Paternity of Baltimore, and others got involved in the league and connected us with people like Jermaine Smith over in DC to introduce us to the world of modding rosters and helping us get the potential of having more than 8 teams in the game. So what started as just a test to bring back the old league ended up evolving into a new league. And so All Pro wasn't where we started, but I wouldn't play any other game out there. I think a lot of times people forget that, and most people don't know, the first game at the convention will be our 2000th game. That's what Mike Dagg says.
Amazing.
In going through all of the records and historical data and all that. So we will have that to celebrate in Las Vegas. But people may look at other games and say, why don't we play that game? And I would say, how about you try to get to 2000 games with any other game and get back with me? Because I don't think that any game can hold up as long as All Pro has held up. And while it has its quirks and its issues at times, we have used it for almost 2,000 games, and the league is more popular than ever. So it is a very underrated product. I think until you get involved in coaching and really understanding and respecting the game plans and the coaches and what they put forth, you can't really begin to, fairly respect or criticize All Pro, because you really don't necessarily understand all of the ins and outs like a coach might. And I've seen All Pro through 2,000 games, and I've seen all of the, what I call, less than 1% plays, the punt block that is then fumbled, right, and recovered by the other team, like we saw earlier this season. The interception that turns into a safety, like we saw in the Vancouver-Houston game.
Exactly.
Every week there are things that happen in the SFL, and I've been here for all 2,000 games, and I say to in the broadcast room, I've never seen that. And I think it's very underrated that we continue to see things. How is that possible, Ashley? 2,000 games. That is 4,000 hours of watching All Pro and never seeing what you just saw. Like, how many games end with a field goal hitting the crossbar, like we saw this week with LA or with Vegas and DC? I can't remember another one that did. I remember one that hit like the post, right? A left post or whatever. But I mean, there's so what? 2 out of 2,000? Like, you were talking about 0.001% of games ending that way. And I think that is ultimately what makes All Pro special. And the things that people see happen more often that they don't like, they're watching more All Pro than they are of other games. If you were to watch any other football game, 30 games, 40 games, 50 games, you would see the same. They would be different, Ashley, but you would see little things that weren't that great a lot, just like you do here. But you're not watching those games as intently as you are All Pro, being in the SFL and things like that. So APF is under a microscope because we are airing 24 hours of content a weekend and featuring All Pro. And so you're seeing a lot of stuff and you're seeing a lot of the same stuff, and it becomes aggravating, but it's just because we've got so much of it. We've just got so much content, and I think it is done well to hold up as long as it has, considering how old that it is. And I still think it's it's a beautiful football game. It's a shame that we haven't had a football game that can meet those expectations all these years. But it is also the right game for us, Ashley. We do not want to be involved in a game that has the NFL license or NFL teams or affiliations. We don't need the lawsuit. We don't need the cease and desist. We don't need our television partners feeling like, are we misappropriating the NFL? Are we trying to be the NFL by using that game? A lot of other leagues can get away with that because they don't have our mission. And our mission is to get you, the player, out in front of these people and make you a star, make you somebody. Other leagues don't have that vision. And so for us, we have to be sure that we are using a game that does not have any kind of ties or affiliations with things like that. So when people bring up, Madden, any iteration of Madden, we don't see it as an option because of some of those things, some of those hurdles.
Makes sense. When I had Zach on from APM Music saying, hey, copyright is a big thing, and that's not something that's not a game you want to play, especially with these big conglomerates like NFL. But yeah, I was curious of that, if you would ever consider changing a game. But I do know that you were actually trying to get your own game for the SFL.
Yes, ma'am.
How close are you to that goal? Or are you any closer than you were the last time we spoke up?
Yeah, I mean, we're closer every day, honestly, Ashley. It's about, unless you just know millionaires and you run in those circles, you're far away from doing what you want to do. What you need, what most average everyday Americans like me and you actually need, is networking, connections, relationships, partnerships. You have to climb the ladder to get to people who actually can make these things happen.
Right.
And a lot of our partners now that we've just announced, right, they have connections in this, but it doesn't mean that they can do it themselves. But for example, Ashley, Rare Drop has a relationship with Full Sail University. Full Sail University has a program in game design. Well, if you've got future game designers out there that are building up their talents, well, who are their instructors? Right? I'm sure they know some people in the gaming space. Is anybody they know in the football space? Talking with other indie games. Every time we see a football game that is being developed, I'm in their Discord. There's a high school football game being developed right now by the former creators or by the former developers of Maximum Football. There's obviously the new development team of Maximum Football. There's other indie games that we've talked to that aren't building exactly, the type of games that we play, but they care about football and they know how to program football and things like that. So anytime somebody comes out there and says, hey, I'm making a football product, we're in their ear to let them know we exist and to see, if anything can come of it. So ultimately with every relationship we build, we get closer. to building our own game. But we all have to understand, and I want everyone to understand that I'm not an idiot that thinks it's just going to happen. I told people a long time ago, we're going to be on TV, and they laughed at me. We're in the same boat here where I say we're going to have our own game one day and people are going to laugh at me, but I don't care. I have a mission to achieve. And if that means that we can bring sim sports to the world, right? Then that's what we're going to do. The SFL has already developed a business model in the event that we do release a game. And we're talking about 5-10 years away, Ashley. Like that's the minimum that we would be able to execute anything like that. And with every day that we don't have a check writer, that's just another day that it's pushed back, right? But it's okay because we're not going anywhere, right? The SFL will continue to prove its concept to other companies and to other partners that this can really be something for the masses. This is something that lots of people will get involved in and care about. So we're on a mission. We are closer than we were the last time we spoke. But these are once in a lifetime type moments that when you see things like, all of these partners coming on board, Ashley, that is an indicator to we're closer than we've ever been because we're building out those relationships, those partnerships, those connections, those contacts until eventually all of a sudden one day, right, we're making some kind of announcement on that front. So, we'll see what happens. And, if anybody thinks I'm crazy, then you just keep on thinking it. I'll keep on working.
I love it, Cam. I love it. All right, Cam. So I have a question because you mentioned this a little bit earlier. You talked about sliders. And I noticed maybe, 6-7 weeks ago, you posted the sliders that we use. And I was wondering, why did you do that?
People wanted to know.
Okay.
I didn't realize that they didn't know. A lot of times this league's so big. I don't realize that people don't. I take it for granted. Two years ago, the teams voted to switch to legend sliders. I assume people know what that means, right?
Right.
I guess not. So, okay, if you don't know what legend sliders are, well, this is what they are. If you go to All Pro Football and you turn your game to legend sliders, that's the same. So anytime anybody wants to know anything about how my system is, that's fine with me because that doesn't make the games. What makes the games are the playbooks and the players and progression and game plans and those type of things. That's what determines wins and losses. Anything else, and it's just lack of accountability for either yourself or a lack of credibility to your opponent. Blaming something that hasn't changed for 15 years and that is readily available and accessible to teams to see, right, is a waste of time. It's not going to make you a better coach. It's not going to make you a better team to say that the reason why we won or lost is because of something that we can't control, because everybody plays with the same stuff. So I posted it just quite frankly because it's not a secret. I think some people thought that it was a secret, or some people thought that, the league, that was like the league's prerogative to not share its settings because it's our league and we wouldn't want other people playing with those settings. Don't make the SFL. The settings are what the owners voted them to be. And when it comes to competition, I just listen to what they say. They wanted legend settings, so we changed it, and that's what they are. So pretty simple. But I got off the phone one person was telling me how upset, there was a group of people that were really upset about sliders and things and not knowing. And I said in that conversation, I'm going to get off the phone and post them right now. I had no idea that it was an issue or that it was a thing. And so I've reached out to people who felt like, things were being kept from them intentionally or unintentionally, and said, hey, if there's anything else you want to know about my Xbox or whatever it is, sure. It's not a big deal.
Okay, because I know I asked you that maybe a couple shows ago when I had you on. I asked you about if the plays that are given to you are the same plays that are being input in your Xbox that day. Like there are no changes, And I can never understand why I was the first person to actually ask you that, for you to address it. I couldn't.
It's a big league. There's so many things that go into the SFL, Ashley. I just, we don't think about the process, right? And how it all comes to be. A lot of people show up on game day to hope their team wins, right?
Yeah.
And so, how it all happens, that's the same thing as, wondering, well, how does the SFL even send games to television anyway? Like how are we on TV? How does that work? And that's not a secret, but it's just not something that we think about on a daily basis. And I think that the sliders fell into that too, that until someone actually raises the question, if we never think that people would be interested in that or have ever had a worry or concern about that, just never gets brought up. So happy to assist in, the transparency of it all, and the portals help that too.
Yes.
You want to see what your player is going to look like on the field? It's right in front of you. Want to see your opponent? It's all right there too.
So can you speak to that a little bit?
What?
How do you go through that process of putting the game from your Xbox onto televisions? And how do you send it over? How do you put everything on YouTube? Just for people that don't know. Because for me, if I'm streaming, I turn on my Twitch, I save broadcast, and I'm there. So,
well, for us, we use technology that allows us to send our signal to multiple different outlets. It's not something that's free. It's something, built for businesses that we have to get our signal out elsewhere. Most people don't realize that costs money. It's the little things that people don't realize, like to run a league like this, the costs that are associated with things. So, what television does is they say, here is our server, essentially. Here's where you will send to. Anytime you stream on Twitch, you are sending to Twitch's servers, right? Well, every television station has servers too, right? Twitch has their own servers, YouTube has their own servers, ESTV has their own servers, NXT has their own servers, right? Then there's all these different places where you can send the game. So in advance, we have to program specific games to be sent to specific places. So just like when you go live on Twitch, I'm going live elsewhere, right? I'm sending that signal to different servers and to different places. And that's how we end up on television. So they're just like Twitch, they're just like YouTube, but where their content is actually being shown is different. NXT may be showing on DirectTV. Well, Twitch is showing on their website. It's all the same. It's just, it's going to different places and to different parts of, the country and networks and all those type of things.
Okay, so are you responsible for controlling when everything goes out and even the quality as it's going on?
My job as producer is to monitor these signals and these streams. So when we have, let's say, like last Sunday, we had Lone Star in San Diego, we had Baltimore and Arizona, right? I'm responsible for monitoring both of those feeds to make sure that we've got a good connection, that we have a good signal. I'm sending, one game out to somewhere and then sending another game out to somewhere else. And if we have signal loss, I have to determine, is that on my end, right? Is that my fault? Is it the signal that I am sending to someone else? Is it their fault, right? Is a Twitch server acting up, right? To where it's not, I'm sending a great signal, but they're not receiving, they're not, pushing it out properly. And trying to figure out what the issues are, is a constant, challenge, because you're trying to put out the best quality possible. So when people say like, oh, my video is buffering, or, I can't hear something, I have to determine, is that on the viewer's end or is that on my end? Am I not sending sound? Am I sending to the wrong place? A couple times this season, we've gone to TV, but the game doesn't get pushed to YouTube properly. The YouTube server doesn't accept our feed. So TV's telling me, hey, game looks great. But our YouTube audience is saying, I don't see anything. So I have to figure out, okay, is that a YouTube thing? Is that a me thing? Did I forget to just send it to YouTube? Is YouTube server acting up? Is it not accepting the signal for whatever reason? Is the coding that I put into the back end to make sure that game gets sent properly, is that wrong? And so it's just getting all of our P's and Q's in line and making sure that we're executing. So when you see your game show up on time without issue, well, I am having a good day, I guess, because I did it all right. So yeah, that in a nutshell is how it all works and how we're able to send all of these games to all these different places.
You need an assistant.
Yeah, you keep saying that. Move on to the next question.
Okay. Saying.
We had a conversation about this when I was in the car for like 3 hours the other night.
True.
So.
It was actually 4 hours, but who's counting? But yeah, that's just a lot of work. I mean, and I appreciate all the work that you do. That's just, I would lose half this afro. I can tell you this, if I'm trying to make sure everything goes right. And then I see sometimes where the feed ends here, and I see you trying to fix things, and it's you have a daunting job. You should do it with
everybody has a job, Ashley. You're skilled in things, and you have a job that takes advantage of those skills.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. This is what I do. I understand production. It's a specialty of mine. If any ordinary person tried to do it, they wouldn't be able to do it. That goes for anybody in any kind of job, in any kind of skill position. And, fortunately, I've had plenty of practice leading up. The SFL has been around for 18 seasons. That's a lot of practice. 2,000 games. That's a lot of practice. So I've been able to gain even more experience when I worked in college athletics. I was responsible for all of the live streams. And so I was able to practice there too. In indoor football, when I worked in indoor football, I was responsible for all of those live streams and production and was a part of that too. So I've had a lot of practice over the years. Most of the time I know what I'm doing, and I don't think there is anybody else out there that can execute as well. And that's just the confidence in, this is my job. This is my contribution to society, just like anybody else's. So, it's no trouble at all. It sounds horrible, but for me, it's fun, and I enjoy doing it. And most days are not overwhelming.
Listen, almost 20 years of doing anything, you better love it. Okay. SFLm.
Yes, ma'am.
We have the season is just starting. Have a lot of people that have just entered in. What are your thoughts on the SFLm and where we go from here?
It's a great place for people to get involved and get their feet wet with the league. Now they're on the player portal too. So when you first join, you get your base copper player and you get it in the portal and you start progressing from there. That's huge. That's a big thing for the SFL and for the SFLm to get players familiarized with how progression works. so that when they transition to the SFL, they are fully integrated in how we do things. I think it's a great place to develop broadcasters. Still, I think it's fun to see all the new players, and this season it's going to be fun to see all the two-way players as well. A lot of players who have not racked up a lot of numbers in the SFL and who we might have forgotten is pretty awesome, right? And they're going to get to showcase their talents again down in SFLm, and hopefully that continues to lead them to bigger and better spots on new teams, right? Or in new opportunities. So we'll have that wrinkle this season as well. The SFLm's in a great spot. There's not a whole lot of change coming to the league. It is just a great place to get started. It kind of reminds me of the SFL of old, the 8 teams, the coaching development, the broadcast development. That's very old school in the SFL, and so it always gives me a little nostalgia because it feels like what the SFL felt like 6-7 years ago. So it's a great place, and I love seeing all the new faces in the chat, all the new usernames, all the and seeing even more people engaged with the SFL, because after a very long SFL season and seeing all the same faces and all the same names, to know that there are even more out there that are ready to take their next step is super exciting for me to get to know those names, get to see them play on the field and see all that energy.
Yes, it is exciting. It really is. And anyone that would listen, I always tell them that they're absolutely lucky to have a chance like this. Because when I started, it was only one game to showcase your talent, and if you didn't get it, oh well, So it's been a great thing to watch. Now, I did have a question for you. I'm not sure if anyone's asked you this before. I'm not sure if maybe I asked you this. Forgive me if I have. But with the Albuquerque Adams particularly, I know that they did win one season and then they weren't there that following season, and then they're back. So what is the criteria for when a team disappears like that? Was it the coaches? Did they just not have time for it? Or
in Albuquerque's case, I think their coach just stepped aside to, if I'm remembering correctly, to just focus on other things in the SFL. And so anytime that we have a coach step down, we look for another coach to take over. If that new coach wants to coach a different team, wants to bring back another team, right? Or maybe a team that they used to coach for. Boise's a good example of this. Robert Garrett Jr. got started in Boise, right? And then he stepped away from coaching for a little while. And Boise went dark. Well, Robert stepped back into the fold, right? Wanted to get Boise going again. But then Robert Garrett Jr. became a co-owner or a minority owner of Fort Worth. And owners cannot be coaches in the SFLm. So Boise had to go away again. Now, if somebody would have come in and stepped in to continue to run Boise, then Boise would remain. But Mike All, for example, he wanted to bring back Lincoln, who he played for in the first season of SFLm when he was a rookie. So when Mike All is pegged for that opportunity, it's kind of the ball's in his court. Well, what do you want to do, right? And if Mike All wants to coach Albuquerque, well, then Albuquerque plays that season. If he doesn't, then Albuquerque may not play that season. So anytime there are coaching vacancies, there are a number of teams in which they could coach for, and it's up to that coach as to what team they would like to be a part of.
Now, my last question for you. How did you decide or who decided on the team logos and the team names for the SFLn?
That was Deputy Commissioner Rastelli.
Okay.
We wanted to put teams in locations that had never had an SFL team. We wanted to use logos and identities that didn't clash with any current SFL teams. There was Boise, for example. We didn't have a black and yellow team in the league. We didn't have a team with a dog mascot. We didn't have a team in the Pacific North, not the Pacific Northwest, but just the Northwest, out in the, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, North Dakota. We just didn't have any teams up there. Idaho. So it was a good place to put a team with a unique identity that wouldn't clash with anybody else. And we try to do that for, all of our teams as best we could. There's only so many colors in a color wheel. Mm-hmm. It was a chance for Rastelli to make something for himself and make something for the SFL. And he transitioned into a new role from Director of Player Personnel to Deputy Commissioner. And, he was tasked with, this is your league to operate. It is not the SFL. It's not as taxing or time consuming as the SFL, but it does need its own attention. It does need its own point of contact because it's its own universe. And oftentimes rookies will send me DMs and I'll say, I don't want to tell you anything that I'm not an expert on, and I'm not an expert. Go to Deputy Commissioner Rastelli and he will have the answer for you that you need, in SFLm. And I'm sure he does the same thing when people ask about the SFL. Hey, just go ask Cam because I'm not really sure. Those teams were developed, and until it makes sense for either the league to invest in branding, which there's no financial benefit to doing that right now, and there's no need to do it right now because the SFLm is not on TV. Until we have a reason to make that investment, or we have a reason to sell teams off to prospective owners of minor league teams, the teams will just stay on rotation as they've been created.
Okay, got one more. I know I said that was the last one, but what are you looking for in your owners when they become a part of the group? Like, I've asked different owners like what their expectations are, what do they look for in a fellow owner, or when making decisions on votes. But I'm curious to know from your perspective, what type of owner would you like to see setting example perhaps for the ownership group, or just to be able to add to the owners?
Well, I'm looking for an owner who is passionate about the SFL and their team.
Yeah.
I am looking for an owner who understands when to be an owner and when to be a fan, and when it is acceptable to be a fan and acceptable to be and required to be an owner. I think oftentimes people's passion turns into unprofessionalism when they are not wearing their owner hat, and they should be wearing their owner hat. I think our teams have a long way to go of understanding that their brand is who they are. They are not people, they are brands, right? I am a brand. I do not act like Cameron Irvine as in interviews like this, right? As a commissioner, outside of saying that the Bears suck. No, just stay muted up there. You don't have to unmute. I have to be the brand. I represent the brand every time I go out there, in any kind of public setting anywhere in the SFL. And I want an owner who understands that about their brand too. That when you put on that jersey, when you commit to owning a team, your personal identity is not always required or needed. you need to be able to represent a brand in a way that even if it hurts you, even if it's frustrating, even if it's not exactly what you want to say, it's not about you, it's about your brand. And that is the number one thing that I'm looking for out of an owner. Can you represent a brand and represent it over yourself? And then on game day, can you, not necessarily game day, but when you are in your locker room and when you are with your team, can you deliver that passion that a fan has? You know, the ultimate fan. I want Eddie Gage to be the Arizona Scorpions' #1 fan. I want Mark Chisholm to be the Atlanta Swarm's #1 fan. When it's time for them to not be a fan anymore and be an owner, I need them to put that away and be the brand. I don't need them to be Mark Chisholm. I need them to be the Atlanta Swarm. I need them to be the brand. So that to me is what makes a great owner and a great leader. If you can put all that aside and be the brand. And I think ultimately the ones that do that the best are the ones that are most successful in this league, in retention, in active, passionate locker rooms, because locker rooms need leadership, but they also need super fans to get them fired up and to get them pumped up and to get them excited about being there. You need someone to build you up and get that locker room hyped. And you also need someone that can lead that locker room to the next week, to the next season, to the next year of being here. So that's my opinion.
All right. That's interesting. I'm glad that I know, at least where your head is, because it seemed like there are certain core aspects that people are looking for within that group, but then they kind of veer off wherever else, so it's good.
Everybody has an opinion, and the reality is that everybody's going to vote differently. I do not vote on expansion teams. Expansion teams come in on a 1-year probation. They cannot add or subtract owners off of their initial bid. And then after that, it is up to me to make sure that those teams are in a position to succeed long-term, right? And that they are succeeding in the short term and the long term. So what happens is I can put out a criteria of exactly how I laid out to you, Ashley, but everyone's going to interpret that differently. And so at the end of the day, it's up to every team. It's up to the group at large to take all of what they think great ownership is and put that collectively into a vote. I'm a big believer in democracy in situations like this, because I really do feel like it serves us well most of the time, as long as the democracy can admit when they make a mistake, because mistakes happen, and you vote in teams that you think are going to be amazing and they're no longer in the league anymore, right? And those things happen. So as long as we approach the situation, all 24 teams, the league at large, with some humility, with open minds and, with passion and enthusiasm, then, I think it ends up being a great thing. Indeed.
And you're definitely right about, different, how you can put things one way and it could be interpreted, differently. Like when you made that statement about the Bears, I could have took that one way, but I'm going to interpret it as you are reaching out.
It's reality.
I'm going to interpret that as you
as reality.
Are a friend reaching out because you made a bad decision to be a Green Bay fan, and you're reaching out to me for help. I will embrace you, but you got to let that green and gold go, brother. It's all right. I
see.
It's okay to make a mistake. Like you just told everybody else, it's okay.
Very interesting interpretation of what I said. Yes.
Yeah. Because any other time you would have got muted straight up. So that's how I chose to, interpret what.
Wow. Yeah. No, that would be very close-minded, Ashley, for you to just do that.
Exactly. And I'm not like that. This is an opportunity for you to grow.
Yes, I'm growing I am growing. My dog is agitated by what you're saying.
Well, I mean, he knows the truth too, that you shouldn't be a Green Bay fan. But
well, I know the truth, and that she's a girl. So, you're not helping your case, right, Dodge?
I'm sorry, girl. Well, listen, Cam, this has been amazing. It's been fun, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. And at this time, because I know you're really busy. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but we got
It's been a long
of
time, Ashley. I was trying to look back to see when the last time I was on the show. It's at least been 4 months, at least. I can't remember exactly when I was last on, but it's been a long time. So
yeah, you got to come back.
Always happy to be here.
You got to make yourself more available. Once you get high up, you act like you don't see the little people no more.
Ah, okay. Thank you for putting that narrative out
No,
there that absolutely nobody agrees with at all.
Yeah, I like that so much. But anyway, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing what new projects you have coming down the pipeline for us. Thanks for the opportunity, that all the effort that you put forth every time, every single game, every single week. We have this outlet. Excuse me. We have this outlet and we have this pastime. We have this hobby because of you. Because you took time out of your life, like you literally stopped working just to make sure that we had a place to go and a place to have fun and a place to live out a dream that otherwise we probably wouldn't have been able to do. That's a major sacrifice. And so I'm hoping that the sacrifices that you make, that you get back tenfold. All right.
It is my pleasure, Ashley, and looking forward to a great playoffs.
And indeed. I'll see you soon.